Give it a. Give it a second. Let people get settled in the audience and then we'll start. You all ready?
Ready.
All right, we're going to get started. Call the meeting to order. We'll start with the pledge. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, before we get started, there are a few things I just want to go over. Unfortunately, Amber was not able to make it here at the last minute, so we're going to have to make some minor adjustments to the agenda. Because I have to recuse myself from the discussion regarding the transfer of property, the installation of IA systems upon property transfer, we're going to have to postpone that because we do not have enough of a quorum to even open and then adjourn. So that's going to be postponed until the August 26th meeting. So just so everybody's aware, if you're here to discuss that, we're not going to be going over that today. And then there are 3 resolutions that we will be putting on either tomorrow's meeting as a special, or they're going to be pushed until the August 26th meeting. And those are for the WQI rebates. So those 3 will not happen tonight either. Does anybody have any questions or comments on resolutions that we'll be reading tonight, not ones that have a public hearing attached? No, I don't see anybody. All right, Albert, if you'd like to kick us off.
All right. Second page here, Amber. 6:06 p.m. prevailing time on the, okay, that's okay. Whereas Robert and Elizabeth, you always confuse me, so I'm not used to that being up front.
I couldn't put on one page.
Whereas Robert and Elizabeth Jeffy, 17 Westmoreland Drive, had petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to remove and replace in place approximately 116 linear feet of existing timber bulkhead with vinyl bulkhead and backfill with up to 25 cubic yards of clean sand loam to be trucked in from an approved upland source as per plans prepared by EN Consultants dated May 12th, 2024. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to section 53-9 of the Code of the Town of Shelter Island, a public hearing will be held at 6:02 p.m. prevailing time on the 26th day of August, 2024 in the Shelter Island Town Hall for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition to the proposed construction. So move.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The next resolution regarding the Shelter Island Yacht Club, we will have to postpone and put that on the next meeting agenda because we do not have a quorum to go over that one. Benjamin has to recuse himself. Whereas Mary Kazmarek of 137 Ramelin Drive has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to remove and replace in place approximately 140 linear feet of existing timber bulkhead with vinyl bulkhead, backfill with approximately 75 cubic yards of clean sandy fill to be trucked in from an approved upland source, remove and replace in-kind in place existing 3.5 feet by 9 foot wood steps as depicted on the project plan prepared by EN Consultants dated June 24th, 2024, be it resolved that pursuant to section 53-9 of the Code of the Town of Shelter Island, a public hearing will be held at 6:06 p.m. prevailing time on the 26th day of August, 2024, in the Shelter Island Town Hall for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition to the proposed construction. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Whereas Bruce Wolosoff and Margaret Garrett, 60 Peconic Avenue, have petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to install approximately 19 linear feet of 500 to 1,500 pound armor stone landward of existing bulkhead return, re-nourish approximately 180 square foot area of eroding bank with approximately 10 cubic yards of clean sand to be trucked in from an approved upland source and planted with Cape American beach grass, 18-inch as depicted on the project plan prepared by Ian Consultants dated May 7, 2024. Be it resolved that pursuant to section 53-9 of the Code of the Town of Shelter Island, a public hearing will be held at 6:08 PM prevailing time on the 26th day of August, 2024 in the Shelter Island Town Hall for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition to the proposed construction. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now we're gonna skip the next three.
Whereas sealed bids were received by the Commissioner of Public Works for the installation of 3 separate groundwater monitoring wells at the town of Shelter Island Recycling. And whereas bids were read aloud as follows: Clean Globe Environmental LLC, $25,975. And whereas it is the recommendation of the Commissioner of Public Works that the bid be awarded to Clean Globe Environmental LLC. Now therefore, be it resolved that the town board does hereby award said bid to Clean Globe Environmental LLC for the aforementioned price. So move.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Be it resolved that Andres Valencia is hereby appointed to serve as a lifeguard for the year of 2024 at a rate of $22 per hour, retroactive to July 30th, 2024. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Be resolved that Dylan Fox is hereby appointed to serve as a lifeguard for the year of 2024 at a rate of $22 per hour. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Be it resolved that the following 2024 budget modifications hereby approved: $1,478.60 increase to the A2680 insurance recovery revenue account, and $1,478.60 increase to the A1910.400 unallocated insurance expense account to be funded by the refund check from Epic Insurance. So move.
Second, all in favor? Be resolved that the following 2024 budget transfer is hereby approved: $675 from the A3120.100 PS Personal Services to A3120.484 Office and Miscellaneous for safe voting instructions. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Be resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to expend the sum of $61,804 from the A3120-491 PD contracts account to the town of Southold for the police dispatch agreement for the year of 2024. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Be it resolved that the 2024 general claims numbered 1356 through 1511 in the amount of $123,138.62. 2024 highway claims numbered 174 through 193 in the amount of $88,990.94. 2024 community preservation fund claims 12 through 13 in the amount of $3,768.82, and 2024 water quality improvement fund claim numbered 14 in the amount of $34.20 are hereby approved for payment as audited, and the supervisor and/or any town board member is hereby authorized and directed to sign the approval for payment of same.
So moved. Okay, sorry, second. All in
All in
favor?
favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, now we're going to enter into the public hearing portion of the meeting. The first scheduled public hearing was for the local law amending the town code, chapter 43, to require upon the transfer of real property, the installation of innovative alternative on-site water treatment systems. That will be postponed until the August 26th meeting. We do not have a quorum and cannot open that meeting, so that will be postponed. Amber, if you could read the announcement for the next hearing.
6:04 prevailing time on the application of Karen Fuhr, 146G North Berry Road, to complete an existing dock that was repaired and subsequently rebuilt without a permit.
I do. I have the report from the WMAC, and then we'll have a presentation. So the WMAC did review this application, and they made the following recommendations: that the dock be replaced, that we replace all the decking with open graded decking. They replace all pilings below the mean high water mark with untreated pilings, and that the float should have chalking per the DEC instructions to the owner. That was what the WMAC recommended.
How are you?
Good.
Rob Herman, Event Consultants, on behalf of the applicant. So we are here to secure a permit for as-built repairs to a previously existing dock, which are the subject of a permit violation. And this is a continuation of a hearing that was adjourned on February 28th, 2023, at which time the board was awaiting input from the WMAC. I believe the board is well familiar with the origin of the violation, so at this point I'd like to focus more on its solution. But it has been over a year since this has been in front of the board, and there are a few significant historical details that are important for you to keep in mind, so I'll run through those with you first. So first, just as briefly as I can with the history. In 2022, the property owner set out to repair and maintain an existing dock in a manner that would not have required a permit pursuant to section 53(9)(a), because the dock was previously permitted and it was determined to be more than 30% structurally sound, and the repairs and replacement were intended to be in kind, in place, and cost less than $10,000. The dock was originally permitted by the town in 1998. Permit number 2267 was issued to Ralph Cast, a previous property owner, and that permit authorized a 4x60 catwalk, a 3x10 ramp, and a 10x20 float. And it had conditions of untreated lumber and the use of locust posts to support the catwalk. Now, however, based on the condition of the dock in June 2018, which was prior to the applicant's purchase of the property in July 2018, the dock had not been constructed entirely in compliance with the 1998 permit. As depicted on a survey prepared by F. Michael Hemmer on June 21st, 2018, the dock at that time consisted of a 5-foot wide rather than 4-foot wide by 58-foot long catwalk with a 5-foot wide by 11-foot ramp on its landward end in order to get up to the elevated catwalk, and a 3-foot wide by 12.5-foot long ramp leading to the permitted 10x20 float. Thus, part of the applicant's predicament from the start was that even if the scope of the repairs and replacement work had not exceeded $10,000, the existing dock still would not have been in compliance with the original permit. Then, of course, the more significant problem, and the reason that we're here, is that the repairs and replacement did in fact end up exceeding $10,000 because the necessary repairs turned out to be more extensive than had been anticipated. And so for that reason alone, the work would have required a permit that we're seeking today. There was also one change in scope made to the overall footprint of the dock, which was the replacement of the previously existing 5x11 incline ramp at the landward end of the dock, which created too steep of an approach to the elevated catwalk, with a 15-foot long ramp and then a 24-foot long walk on grade on the landward side of that. Now, that was the only change in the previously existing footprint. And that's important to note because at one point, I think it may have been suggested or surmised during the WMAC conversations that Ms. Fuhr had in fact widened the catwalk from 4 feet to 5 feet during the repair work. And as I just explained, we do have a survey which we submitted previously showing that the catwalk was in fact 5 feet prior to her purchase of the property.
So, but either way, it didn't match.
That's correct.
Permit.
That's correct. And that was part of the riddle here, is that even if it had been less than $10,000 and it was in place, the dock that was being replaced in place still didn't comply with the permit. So she'd still have had a problem, even if the work didn't exceed $10,000, even if she didn't change the landward end of it. And that's not the be all and end all of this. It's just important to understand because I do think at one point it was understood that the dock was presently widened and it was not. But either way, where does that leave the dock condition today relative to the original permit? And for the purpose of, again, permitting the dock, how can we reasonably remedy or at least sufficiently mitigate any outstanding inconsistencies with the original permit? And so that's what I'll go through next is what's now there today relative to what should have been there and how do we try to fix it? So first, due to the addition of both the larger inclined ramp and the grade level walkway on the landward end, the landward extent of the catwalk is too long. Because the catwalk was originally constructed with a width of 5 rather than 4 feet, the catwalk remains 1 foot wider than what was permitted. And because the catwalk still contains untreated timber, including traditional support piles, the 2 special conditions of the 1998 permit requiring untreated materials and locust posts for piles are also still not met. So what changes can and should be made to address these conditions, which is ultimately really why we're here? Ultimately, that is, of course, a decision that will be made by you as the town board, but I would like to propose recommendations based on my own experience, what I think seems reasonable, and what has already been recommended by the WMAC, as Ms. Larson just referred to. So first, and let me point out that it seems like there was a deficiency in the original permit that it never contemplated an inclined ramp. These catwalks have to be elevated some number of feet above the marsh to allow marsh vegetation to grow beneath it. So if you've got a 3 or 4 foot high catwalk that ends, you have to have steps or a ramp or something or else you just jump down. So there was this ramp that was constructed by the prior owner that was not included in the scope of the permit. And at its prior length of 11 feet, the landward approach to the elevated catwalk was understandably too short and too steep. But what is now a combined 39 to 40 foot length of the newly constructed approach is just unnecessarily long. What is a 15-foot incline ramp section leading up to the catwalk that was reconstructed currently should probably have been about 16 to 18 foot long to reach solid ground just landward of the tidal wetland boundary. And you could still make that change now and eliminate at least 21 linear feet of walkway because basically that entire grade level walk should just come out. It doesn't really serve any integral purpose to the dock. It wouldn't really be considered a functional part of the dock. It's just walking on boardwalk instead of grass. What you need is about a 16 to 18 foot incline ramp that starts on the lawn, landward of the wetlands boundary, and goes up to the elevated catwalk that traverses the wetland. Now, relative to the width, which we were just talking about, it appears the catwalk has been 5 feet wide for over 20 years. Vegetation continues to grow directly adjacent to and below it. And I would argue that to reduce the width to 4 feet at this point would require removing the entire catwalk and reconstructing it from scratch in a slightly new location because it would be slightly narrower. And then all the pilings would need to be newly driven into currently undisturbed bottom locations because you'd be taking this 5 foot walk and narrowing it. And I believe the WMAC discussed, and as I said, I would argue that requiring this at this point would potentially do more harm than good if the additional foot of width can be sufficiently mitigated in some other way, and which I believe is at least one reason, and I recall this from speaking with John Needham before he left the WMAC, why the WMAC ended up recommending replacement of all of the catwalk decking with open grate decking, because the open grate decking allows sunlight to penetrate through the surface of the catwalk and enhance marsh growth beneath it. That is one of the recommendations of the WMAC as mitigation for what was done. That was not part of the original permit. And the applicant is agreeable to making that WMAC recommended materials modification. And we talked to a dock builder who did explain that that could be done. So you'd be taking all of that impervious wood decking, replacing it with a light permeable open grate decking. To further reduce untreated materials comprising the dock, the WMAC also recommended replacing the treated pilings below mean high water with untreated pilings. The original permit had specified locust posts, which is really, I assume, because back in 1998, locust posts would have been the typical and readily available untreated pile. Today, those piles could be replaced with some sort of tropical hardwood. Green hard is the typical pile now. And the applicant is also agreeable to making that WMAC recommended materials modification. Finally, because of the violation, the applicant also had to go through a legalization process with the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, or the DEC, who authorized the dock to remain in its existing condition, except that they required that the floating dock be chalked, which is another condition that WMAC supported and included in their own recommendations. The applicant is agreeable, but of course must and would comply with that requirement.
Excuse me, can you just define chalked for the town board and the?
Sure. So the idea of chalking is that if it's not a deep waterway, if at times at a lower low tide, the float might sit on the bottom. And the DEC prefers that the float not sit on the bottom because it can impact the benthic environment. And so basically you're just putting a couple of timbers between the pilings so that, let's say the water completely ran out of the creek. Instead of going down and sitting in the mud, it would only go down so far until it hits basically what's like a two-piece bed frame and allows the float to sit elevated above the bottom instead of in the bottom. So in summary, before any discussion with the town board, the applicant is agreeable to all of the conditions that the WMAC are recommending with respect to the replacement of the wood decking with the untreated open grate decking, replacement of pilings at or below mean high water with untreated piles, chalking the float as we just discussed, and also modifying and shortening the landward end of the catwalk by roughly 21 feet. Again, that's just the construction of that end needs to be corrected. With these changes, the dock would be virtually identical to the condition it was in before the applicant worked on it, more consistent with the original permit than it was before the applicant purchased the property in 2018. Essentially, the one major issue would be the foot of width, which again, we would be looking to substantially mitigate with the open grate decking. I would actually argue that if you had your choice between a 5-foot wide open grate deck and a 4-foot wide impervious deck, you would go for the open grate just because it allows for light permeability.
What's the material of the open grade decking?
It's like a reinforced fiberglass material. It's not that, I mean, you see it, you see it all over the place in Florida before you saw it here. But now it's becoming sort of the norm for decking that goes over vegetated marsh, because the idea is to keep the catwalk elevated and also light permeable so that vegetation, once the dock settles in, can continue to grow beneath it. So it was not a typical requirement, and I don't even know how readily available it was in 1998. I just don't remember.
Wasn't big back then.
It wasn't real popular, but it has become, right, but it has become more of a norm. So in that regard, it would be a significant improvement over what was the original condition. So the idea is they understand that they should have stopped in the middle of what was being done. As often happens, that wasn't done. They understand the corrections that have to be made. And we're hopeful that the board will be willing to grant an approval at this point. Condition on those changes, and I would assume I would have to provide a revised plan. I think that when the applicant when this came up about a year ago, I think they submitted a plan that basically proposed to just legalize everything that was done. So you have a plan showing this proposed 40-foot long extension on the landward side, et cetera. So we would have to give you a revised plan. I just haven't submitted any revised plans. It didn't seem to make much sense to us until we discussed it with the board and had some direction. And then if we have a direction that everybody can agree on, then we would prepare the plans accordingly. And we did get, I think I mentioned this at the exemption hearing, but just to put it on this record, when I was first retained to help resolve this, because this had been stagnant for a bit, I did go out and flag a current tidal wetland boundary. We did have Michael Hemmer survey that and provide an updated survey that shows the current wetlands boundary and all the existing conditions, just as you would normally require if you were submitting a brand new application for a brand new dock today. So that should all be in your application package.
Does anyone here have questions? Do you have any questions?
No, one of the major issues that the WMAC had was the treated lumber.
Mhm.
And you're moving to rectify that, so that's good.
I want to understand or recap. This started out as a repair,
Correct.
and it's my understanding that the dock was actually dismantled. That's my understanding of the situation.
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know. to
My
what
understanding,
extent.
it was set up as a repair, but then it became like a demo.
Yeah, I
And
don't
a
know
new
that
dock
that's an
was
act.
built without the permit.
Well, so the ramp was removed and has not since been replaced because after the ramp was removed, the stop work order was issued. The floating dock was never impacted. The floating dock is still sitting in the water as it was. It's the upland catwalk that I think you're referring to. And it does seem that all new pilings were redriven, all in the same locations, that it was completely redecked. And I assume that I don't know to what degree the framing was replaced, but in terms of what
It was my understanding
I can
that
see
the
it
dock
was
was, the
redone.
existing dock was demoed and then rebuilt. A
Well,
new,
the catwalk, correct. In other words, part of the dock. It's just, I'm not playing a semantics game, but the dock consists of the catwalk, the ramp, and the float. So the catwalk is what Mr. Dixon is referring to. And that may be the case, but the dock was still replaced, even if we assume that the catwalk was replaced 100% physically through pilings, decking, even framing. It was an in-place replacement of the dock that was existing, which we understand was off by a foot in width relative to what was originally permitted. But it's not like, there should be no impression that this was like somebody went out and constructed a brand new dock in a brand new location with no history, with no permits. Basically, once your repair, and I know you know this, once your repair and replacement exceeds a certain percentage and a cost threshold, you need a permit to do that work. So what should have been done is once it became evident that this was going to become let's say it was a full replacement of the catwalk, you almost kind of have to stop in the water and then come out and seek a permit for that work. And as the board knows, unfortunately, often happens, that didn't happen. The contractor just continued to work and did what, I don't know, I assume what they thought was logical or reasonable in that moment. But certainly was done without the necessary permit, and that's why a violation was issued, and that's why we're here.
also the building department said that the wetlands was markedly disturbed during this process.
So there was a separate unrelated violation this is my understanding from talking to Reed Karen, is that in relation to doing some sort of yard work, there was fill that was placed in the lawn area. That fill, from what I was told and to my eye, was never placed in the wetland. That was part of the reason why I went out and flagged the wetland boundary and examined the condition of the wetland. Now, it was placed within wetlands jurisdiction. That just means within 100 feet of the wetlands boundary, which is why that violation was issued. But that has nothing to do with the dock, and there was no disturbance to the tidal wetland.
Was there
caused by
any
that.
application for a wetlands permit?
For that fill,
For the dock, for the walkway?
there
That
would,
was just built?
I'm sorry, ask me that
They
one.
The
would-
walkway to the dock, the catwalk in the walkway that went on the front lawn.
Ramp.
Was there a wetlands application for that work?
No, that's what I'm explaining. I mean, that's what I think we all know to be the case, is the replacement work that was done on the catwalk did not obtain a permit. I don't know whether the town would have determined that this grade level walkway that continued toward the house would have required a wetlands permit separate from a dock permit. But for all intents and purposes, that part of the structure would be removed. So the fact that it's there became the subject of a violation, but the fact that we're willing to remove it would obviate the need to submit a wetlands application to keep it, because they don't want to keep
I
it.
think the building inspector said that you needed to get a wetlands application for that when it was seen.
So
Quite sure of that.
at some point, and I'm going to defer to your counsel, who may have a better recollection than I do, at some point, there was some conversation whether this work on this dock needed two separate permits, a dock permit and a wetlands permit. And I believe, despite what you're referring to, whatever the initial conclusion was, ultimately, the conclusion was that because, now again, this is not speaking to this grade level walkway that's going to be removed, but with respect to the catwalk that's part of the overall dock and the incline ramp that leads to the catwalk, that is all part of the dock and should be in the sole jurisdiction of the town board relative to a dock permit. Remember, at the time, the planning board was handling wetlands applications. So there is correspondence between me and the town asking, are we supposed to submit an application to the town board for this dock? And then a separate wetlands application to the planning board? And ultimately, as I understood from Reed Karen and from the town attorney, that was not the case. That we are only within your jurisdiction for a dock permit for this work. And that's why we're here. That's the only way we can resolve the violation.
Conditioned upon the removal of the walkway.
Right.
If they wanted to keep the walkway, then they would need two separate permits.
Correct. That was my understanding.
That's right. Okay.
The walkway and a cat ramp are two different.
No, I know, I understand. I know exactly what, I understand. It was a repair, then it really became largely a replacement. And there was a walkway that really warranted a wetlands application, a dock permit and a wetlands application. It's always easier, I guess, to ask for forgiveness than permission. I think that's what this is all about.
Well, I mean, I'm not here to get into a discussion
I know.
of characterizing the behavior. I'm here hoping to resolve it. And the easiest way to resolve that wetlands element is to simply remove that part that might conceivably require a wetlands permit. I mean, particularly because to my eye as a professional in this business, it's a pointless element that I think somebody just put down the way you might put down a carpet in front of your door. I mean, it's nice to have, but you don't really need it. And that's why, based on my conversations with the owners, they said, well, we'll just get rid of it. They want to fix this. If a point needs to be made that a permit should have been obtained, we've
Acknowledge that.
acknowledged.
And just to reiterate, the shrinking of the ramp in your new proposal actually would make the whole thing fit into a regular dock permit.
That's correct,
Okay.
because it's integral to the dock. In other words, you can't get to the ramp and float without a catwalk over the marsh. You can't get up to the catwalk without a ramp or steps that get you up there. Anything that would be superfluous to that on the landward side is to your point, would create a whole other requirement.
Do any members of the public want to speak on this application?
Yes.
Please come up. State your name for the record.
Elizabeth Norden, so I've been on there for 40 years. I live now in the house 142K, which is next to 142G. And I've been in that house for 20 years. So the initial problem with the dock work was that the people in the neighborhood, everyone in the neighborhood on Hedges Road has access to Garner's Creek by virtue of deed rights, right? So they had noted trucks throughout the night going back and forth from the site, and there was a cut through the hedgerow on Hedges Road into the site so trucks could go in and work on this. And then when it was found that there was no permit, the building department came and put a stop order on it and made them stop construction and whatever they're doing, get their equipment out of there. What I find encouraging is the plans to mediate some of the problems that were caused by this totally new dock. It wasn't a replacement. It was a totally new dock. The original plans that Cass put in 1989 stipulated a catwalk of 4 feet elevation over the marsh. What's being referred to now as virtually the same thing is not the catwalk. That was the original, right? The catwalk was 4 feet specifically to address the problems of the marshlands, the wetlands, and to prevent damage to that. So basically, what went in was a totally new construction. And of course, as they noted, they were fined by the DEC for not only removal of vegetation, right? And your trucks going by all the time with this material. So basically, my objection is that in 1989, there were provisions by the town board to protect wetlands. Right? What has gone in is not the catwalk that they negotiated in 1989. It went right through the marsh. Just went right through. So the plans are there. The original 1989 plans are there in the CAS file. I mean, in the 1422 file, it's very clear. This is a 4-foot catwalk, et cetera. So what's being proposed to remediate the problem sounds great. It's not the same, but the board will have to decide whether a dock that goes through the wetlands is the same as a dock that's 4 feet high over the wetlands. That's my comment.
Thank
I
you.
have other comments for the other points.
Does anyone else want to speak to this application? Pam Demarest, I see your hand online.
Hi there. When this applicant came before the board to get this public hearing set or review all of this, there was a discussion about fines that were paid by the applicant, and I believe the town attorney was going to look into that. As far as were fines paid for this work that was done without a permit. We've seen this before, on houses and other things. That was one question I had. And then the other was what the chalking, is that going to be the 2.5 feet above the bottom C as required by the DEC? I don't believe they allow it to go any lower than that. And now that we don't have the plans of what this dock actually is going to eventually look like, I don't know how the town board can make a decision tonight on this application for remediating this disastrous situation. But what were the fines?
They had to pay a $4,000 fine to the DEC. And then as far as the town's concerned, they had to pay 5 times the amount application fee for the building permit. I'm not sure what that calculated to. I don't know if Rob knows that number, but.
Rob, would you like to speak to the chalking?
Sure.
Thank you.
I just want to make a couple of comments. So just in response to the chalking question, that is specified in the DEC consent order, which should be in your file. if that's critical for you to know right now, I can look through my file and find that, but whatever is stipulated by the DEC will have to be complied with and will be enforced. The permit, again, I just want to try to keep things in perspective here when we're using terms like disastrous situation and that this is a very different or brand new dock. I mean, if you have a one-story garage on your property and you have to rebuild it, the structure is new, but that's not new construction. It's a replacement of a structure that was there. So this was a replacement of a dock that was there in the same location and same height that it always has been pursuant to not 1989, but a 1998 permit. And the catwalk was always shown and designed to go through the tidal wetland area. That's the only way to get from the lawn to the creek is to go across the wetland. So again, understanding that the materials are new, which we acknowledge, the code allows for people to replace up to a certain point an existing structure as long as it's in kind and in place and was permitted as this was. The problem is that the replacement and the repairs exceeded that threshold. So instead of having some percentage or some value replaced, 100%, if we're going to stipulate that, of the catwalk was replaced. But that shouldn't conjure up a perception that this is a brand new dock that's like never been here before. It's a replacement of a structure that was permitted to be right where it is now, except for the differences
And the width.
that I spent 15 minutes already explaining that on the record. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. Those differences, those inconsistencies, again, even from how the dock was built prior to Ms. Fuhr's purchase, those inconsistencies are acknowledged and they're documented in your package. The bottom line is, at this point, we're looking to fix that.
And the new plans that you're going to submit are just memorializing what's on the ground right now.
Correct. So it's not a situation where
Up for the ramp.
right. So this is to an extent dictated by this board, right? I assume you're going to close the hearing at some point this evening. You'll discuss this at a work session. We'll need to get some feedback from you. If the board feels that the proposals that I've put forth tonight, consistent with the WMAC recommendations and including the modification, reduction, replacement of this long catwalk seem acceptable to the board as a means of resolving this, then we would submit a set of plans that would show the removal of that entire grade level catwalk and then either just leave it at that, or you might need to replace that incline ramp section that's 15 feet long to make it like 16 feet long or something like that, just so that it gets landward of the wetland boundary, because you don't want the ramp to end in the wetland boundary. You want that to, because right now it's like right at that line. And I don't know if it's actually hitting grade or if it's hitting that, walkway, but whatever minor reconfiguration that's required at that landward end, the bottom line is you would remove that long grade level catwalk, which, again, I mean, it's not, it's a boardwalk on the grass. It's not causing any damage. It's just, it creates additional bureaucratic requirements and justification, which A, are not necessary, and B, there probably is no justification for it. It's easier just to get rid of it.
I don't have my file with me. Can you talk to us about the height of the actual catwalk?
Right, so the catwalk is still an elevated catwalk. So in other words, and I think there may be, see if they have, he's got, sorry, I'm just looking at the survey to see if he's got, yeah, so it looks like, just trying to put a couple elevations. It looks like at one point the elevation of the catwalk is 5.5. where that goes over a contour of 2. So at that point, the top of the deck, for example, would be 3.5 feet high above the ground. And so that's why there is this inclined ramp on the landward end. It's not a boardwalk, and you can see this in the photos. I mean, it's not a boardwalk that literally goes, along the ground. It's still elevated with pilings.
Yeah. And the actual catwalk, the height is gonna be the same.
Correct. It's theirs, it's remain.
Yeah, and just to make it easier. So these photos are,
Yeah, that's what I'm showing.
yeah, okay, so so Ben's already looking at this, but basically it's a little bit hard to see, but basically through the Phragmites, you've got this elevated catwalk here, and then there's this 15-foot down ramp that reaches a certain point and then runs flat. So this whole section of walkway, which is what you were talking about, would trigger the need for a wetlands permit, would be removed. And my only question is, I just don't know when this ramp comes down, is this gonna end sticking in the air? Do you need do you need 1 foot of this walkway to stay in place in order to get past the boundary? But otherwise, the structure would remain in place as it is, but the plans would have to show, for example, the existing piles on the side of the catwalk below mean water being pulled out and replaced with untreated piles. We would have to reflect that. We would have to show all of 100% of catwalk decking being ripped off now and replaced with open grade decking. But as the crow flies, it would not change except for the reduction on the landward end. Is that clear?
It is clear. Does anybody else have a comment on this application? I see no one in the audience. I see no one online. All right. We close the hearing?
Pick this up in the work session.
You can, all right, you can keep it open for written submission so you can see what he wants to propose as far as that ramp.
Let's do that then. Leave it open for maybe 2 weeks.
So to that end, would there be an opportunity for discussion at your work session to get some read of whether these sound like reasonable modifications to you? And if so, we would then add to the record with the revised plans consistent with that.
Well, they're gonna wanna discuss what your plans look like. So obviously, they're gonna speak, you're not gonna have an opportunity to chime in or answer any questions at that point. But I think what they're getting at, you need to just do the homework to see how much of that walkway needs to be maintained to complete the ramp to grade, right? So if you just come up with that.
Is it clear if we leave it adjourned? We can submit adjourned. And then we can discuss it at the work session and then close it at the 26th meeting, have him.
Correct, that's another
So-
option.
Yeah,
That'll be easier.
because we can't really discuss in the work session without adjourning it.
We can discuss it at work session, but
We
if he's
can
gonna
discuss it.
resubmit plans, you need to leave it open.
Right.
No, but to me, it's such a minor thing as far as,
So you're saying leave it open for written submission so that I can give them the plans on the record. That's fine by me.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm okay.
and then if it gets to a point where you have too many questions, you can always vote to reopen, right?
Right. Okay. So we'll close the hearing, leaving it open for written correspondence until, what do you want to, August?
How long do you need?
I think you have a meeting on the 26th, which I have to be
Yeah,
here for other.
So we'll do to the 19th? Written correspondence until the 19th? That's a Monday, 2 weeks from now?
What I would like, if possible, if you can get the plans, like, say, make it 2 weeks,
Right.
get the plans in within a week.
Mhm.
And then so the public can have an opportunity to view it as well and submit their own written correspondence within that week thereafter.
Right.
And then we'd be able to have all that to discuss at a work session.
So what would be that date?
So, I mean, 2 weeks from now will be the 19th.
Work session on the 20th.
with a work session on the 20th.
Perfect.
Yeah, I should be able to get it in by the 19th
Do written
Well,
correspondence.
no. We want you to have it within a week.
of today.
Correct.
That I don't know if I can.
It doesn't have to be like contractor grade plans, just what you're proposing rudimentary.
No, we're giving you a schematic drawing, the same as we would if we were applying for a new dock, but I don't know if I can get that to you within a week. I can get it to you within 2 weeks, which would still be a week before the meeting.
At that
The
point, should we
question
just
is-
leave it open until?
I think, yes.
All right, so we'll just adjourn it until the 26th, because then that gives you 2 weeks to get it to us, it gives us a week to review, and then we'll have the meeting on the 26th, and we can close it then.
Okay.
Or if we have any questions
And
or
so that's fine for
correspondence,
the
we can do
public.
that, right.
So adjourn.
All right, so we're gonna adjourn.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Make a motion. Sure.
I make a motion to adjourn your meeting,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
The next public hearing is for the Perlman Music Program. Amber, if you want to read.
It says 6 PM prevailing time on the application of the Perlman Music Program, 73 Shore Road and 65 Stearns Point Road for improvements to the existing summer camp facility.
Okay, so this application is before us for site plan review, and we have started the site plan review process. We had our initial review meeting, and we assigned different aspects of the review process to different boards, committees, and individuals in the town. So they're all working on their review. So today we're going to open the hearing. We're going to hear your presentation. We're going to adjourn it, just so that everybody's aware that's the process we're going to follow. So there'll be time for public input. And there'll also be time for the committees and the other, like the town engineer, to ask their questions and so forth.
Also, secret review.
And we're also waiting on the secra.
And then just real quick, we did refer this to Suffolk County Planning Commission, and they made a determination that this is local. So
Local
so
jurisdiction.
they're not going to chime out. So
All right, thank you.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Frank Eisler. I'm a member of the firm of Smith Finkelstein Lumberg in Riverhead. I'm the attorney for the Perlman Music Program, our applicant here today. We're going to be presenting to you and to the public our site plan to upgrade and improve the existing 30-year facility that's been there in the same, pretty much the same condition. And what we're going to do in our presentation tonight is I'm going to first invite Toby Perlman, who is the president and the founder of the Perlman Music Program, to just make some brief discussion, give you a little bit of the background of the program and the history of the property. We'll then ask Anna Kaplan, who is the executive director, to go into the more detailed thoughts behind the generic plan that is being presented to you. And then finally, we will have our architect, Lee Slatnick, actually walk through the site plan with you, and we'll have visuals for you. And he'll also walk through the 14 factors of the code that the board has to consider when reviewing the site plan. So rather than listen to me, let's listen to the experts. Would you, Toby, like to come up?
Not really. I would not really like to come up, but here I am. I don't know what you want to know. I can tell you a couple of things that are fact. Starting with, how good are we? We are the best program of its kind in the world. There isn't anything that comes close. So just from a musical point of view, you should know that. You should know that it's just stunning the way these kids play. You should also know that I have no interest in making a bigger program. Would be a big mistake. have no interest in changing anything in terms of our musical point of view, our point of view about children. Although we do give concerts for 7 weeks in the summer, we give concerts all year round, but although we do give concerts, the concerts are not the main focus of what the kids are doing. The main focus of what they're doing is working, studying, learning. And if a piece is ready to try out in public, so they play it on a Shelter Island whip on a Saturday night. But the point is not to learn the piece quickly and then play it and then go on to the next. The point is to work on it and study it in a leisurely, that's the wrong word, but without the pressure of performance right there for them. My goal initially was to create a safe space for these kids who live in a pressure cooker. It's very similar to, well, we're all watching the Olympics these days. And our kids, our Perlman Music Program kids, live a life similar to an Olympic athlete. Everything is around the discipline of sport, the music. And my goal was to create a place where kids were less scared of the world, of everything, of the pressure of having to excel. And I think that we have done that. We're very interested in ensuring the Perlman Music Program for the future. Not making it bigger, but, well, I suppose we'll have plans and you'll see what we want to do. Making it better, but not bigger. And making it so that the ceiling won't fall in or the floor won't fall, it's old, everything is creaking, the paint is peeling. And we have to fix it. So I suppose that's what we're here for. I do want to tell you one story, which is that we started out renting space in various places on the East End. And we decided after 3 or 4 years, maybe we should try and buy something, that would be good if we had our own facility. So we thought about looking around, and actually some donors gave us a piece of land in Sacaponic, which was quite fabulous. But the powers that be there said that they didn't want us because they didn't want the sound of trumpets and drums. We're a string program. We don't have any drums or trumpets, but anyway. And I didn't really like that space that they were giving us because it was very fancy. Very, 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 very fancy, but it wasn't for us. So some of you may know this story. One of our faculty members had mentioned to a friend of hers that we were looking to find a place for a home for the Perlman Music Program. And her friend was visiting in Shelter Island, was on Shore Road, saw some buildings, got out of the car, went and asked the people and found out, sure enough, the place is for sale. Called us and we took a look. And we thought, we have to have this place. And it all worked out. It was wonderful. 4 people contributed. They were able to buy it for us. But what I didn't know at the time, I didn't know that Shelter Island is a magical place. I just thought it was a place. I mean, boats or whatever. It didn't take long for me to understand that there is no place like Shelter Island. Here we are, we have these kids from all over the world, some of them are playing on very valuable instruments. We don't lock our doors. I mean, we're on Shelter Island, we don't have to lock our doors. And I know we've developed over the years a public who adore us. So that now on Fridays and Saturdays, we have a big audience. They've watched many of these kids grow up. And the whole thing sounds like a fantasy, but it's real. And I would love to be able to, I'm pretty old, you know, and I'm not getting any younger. I would love to see in my lifetime, at least phase 1 of this plan be built. And I think that's what should happen. And that's all I have to say, unless you have questions. I'll answer anything. Probably I don't know the answer. Am I done? That's a lot.
Thank you.
You got the hook.
I'm Anna Kaplan, I'm the executive director. I'm proud to work at a magical place like the Parliament Music Program. I just want to reiterate that we are not planning to change a thing about our mission. Our goal is to rebuild really deteriorating facilities and serve our community of students, of faculty. We are currently renting homes outside of our campus to cater to our faculty needs. We would like to add faculty housing to no longer need to do that. We are, you know, our concerts are unamplified, our lighting is minimal. We wish to upgrade our systems, our water treatment to eco-friendly systems that are up to date and are as modern as possible. And we really wish to preserve as much of the undeveloped forest land on the Stearns Point side of our property to preserve it as much as possible and only add faculty cabins where we already have faculty housing. On the south parcel, if you see square footage increase, it's only because we're adding walkout basements to existing footprints. And if anything, we're reducing the footprint of our dining hall. So really our goal here is to ensure the future of the Parliament Music Program here on Shelter Island. And we hope we get to do it very soon. I'll let Lee Skolnick and to present the site plan in detail. If you have any questions, please. Thank you.
The cell phone doesn't want us to.
Keeps running away from me.
Hi again. It's just good to be back here.
Please state your name for the record.
Lee Skolnick, architect, Sag Harbor, New York. I'm the lucky architect who gets to make the place look like we didn't do anything. And as Anna said, the kids deserve to have safe, healthy, supportive places to experience this incredible program. And that's what we're really trying to do. As Toby and Anna said, we're not expanding the program, we're not expanding the population of kids or faculty. It's really just it's kind of a repair in a way. I know the 14 points that have been brought to our attention, I can run through those. Can we get the site plan up on the, to give you a little tour? So here you're seeing the campus and we're showing to you, I know it's kind of small, now that I say it. We are relocating the dining hall with a smaller footprint than we had before. But what we're trying to do is bring the buildings a little further up the slope, away from any flood events. And
we're trying to consolidate them a little bit so that we can create more of a sense of a courtyard feeling. You know, right now they're kind of scattered and there aren't great outdoor spaces. We want to create some outdoor spaces for the program that feel more inviting and useful. So this is a very broad view. Why don't we go to the sort of closer up ones? Over here, you're looking at the south parcel, which, as you can see, is very lightly developed. And I think we said that the density is going from, where do I have that figure? Oh, yeah, the lot coverage on the south parcel is increasing by 1/4 acre across a 20-acre parcel. So it's a very small increment in terms of additional development. Let's go to the next one. So this is a rendering, obviously, of what the configuration of the buildings would look like when we're done. We will have moved the dining hall and created a new structure. We will have moved the boys' dorm from the westerly part of the site, a little closer in to form that courtyard. We're going to get rid of these, there's some tiny little practice cabins which are in very bad shape, so those would be removed. But the faculty housing will be either just refurbished or we're gonna add 8 cabins on the south parcel, and that constitutes that 1/4 acre of additional development. In terms of the architecture, I know this is about the site plan, but the architecture is, as I said at the beginning, designed to look like it might have always been there. It's in exactly the same style and materials of the existing buildings. So this is a view of the new dining hall. We want to preserve a lot of the amenity that the campus has now. It has broad porches where kids can sit out and eat meals. Some are, because we're facing north, we don't need to have complete covering of the porches. So some of the porch is open to the sky and others are so that they can eat in inclement weather. We were talking about screening them in, but we're thinking we probably won't even screen them in because we're going to be creating new doors in the north face of the building, and those will have screens. So we don't really need to create an additional screen porch. Let's keep going. So this is the entry, the new entry to the new dining hall. As you can see, we're not trying to make fancy buildings. This was a very strict order from the client. You know, it shouldn't look like we spent a lot of money. We're trying not to spend a lot of money. And it shouldn't look like we are upgrading to some more ambitious design aesthetic. Go on. This is the pathway that we're going to be establishing from Stearns Point Road, because we're going to be making a small permeable informal parking area on the edge of Stearns Point Road on the south parcel. So we want to have a safe crosswalk, and then we want people to be able to meander down to the tent where we presently have performances. In the future phase, which is part of our site plan review, we imagine that the tennis court, which is presently where the tent is, would be converted with an open air performance kind of band show, not enclosed. So that's the sort of big picture. As far as the 14, was there another slide? No, okay. So I'm gonna go through these 14 points so you understand how we're addressing each one of them. In terms of traffic, there is 0 changes. Nothing is gonna change from, that would affect any of the streets surrounding our parcel. In terms of parking, as I mentioned, we're adding 13 spaces on the south parcel. We currently have 28, and so that'll give us a total of 41 on the south parcel. The north parcel, for those of you who've been there, doesn't really have formal parking. There's some, there's some blacktop We currently have 21 informal spaces, we're calling that. We're only adding about 5, so for a total of 26. The motivation behind that is twofold. One is we want to get some of these cars off the streets. You know, when there are performances, people tend to park on Shore Road or on Stevens Point Road. And we want to make it a safer situation without creating blacktop. Everything would be permeable. In fact, the existing pathways on the campus will be changed to permeable surfaces so that they drain directly. And as I said, the new event parking will also be grass or gravel. In terms of landscaping and screening, we did take into account some of the input that we got the last time we presented, particularly along our western border where there's a residence. And so we've beefed up the screening around a couple of the new cabins, which might be in closer proximity to that residence. And that's on the plan, which you now have. All the disturbed areas will be revegetated with native vegetation, or if they were existing lawn areas, we'll just put them back into the same condition that they had before. But in fact, we'll wind up with more revegetated areas with native vegetation than we have now. As I said, as far as the existing development, the comprehensive plan, there's no change to the overall character of the site or the buildings. The density of the north parcel will actually be absolutely unchanged. So the lot coverage will not be increased on the south parcel just by that quarter acre that I mentioned. In terms of the natural features and environmental concerns, as Toby and Anna mentioned, we see this as an opportunity to be better neighbors with nature. So any new grading, drainage, dry wells are gonna help recharge the water supply compared to what they have now. There's a professional ecologist engaged as part of the secret review process. So they'll be working with us directly, and they have begun to do that already. You may know that there's a professional archaeologist who has been engaged because both SHPO and SEQRA require their analysis. So they've been on the site, they've done their test holes, they're analyzing the results right now, and we should have that very soon. Lighting is a big deal because we're trying to balance safety, which is not great there now because, I mean, I've been there for many events now, and at night, there's some places where you can see perfectly and then you enter into a dark spot and you don't know what's underfoot. We want to make sure that all of the pathways are lit, they're gonna be lit at a very low level. We're very aware of the dark sky regulations, nothing is gonna be shining up. And then anything that is installed will be shielded, softer, you know, we'll use LED lights, but as you know now, LED lights are dimmable. They can operate at very low foot candle. So we can make it pleasant, but safe. And we're gonna maintain the residential character. We don't want it to feel like an office park or even a campus, academic campus. It was always a camp. And so we're fine with it being, you know, continuing to be rustic, but we want people to be safe. Drainage is a big deal all over the island and all over the East End. We work extensively in all the towns. So we have a stormwater pollution protection plan that we'll be submitting. Contractor has been instructed to maintain a phased limit of disturbance with site protection and erosion control measures for DEC regulations. And that'll happen on a rolling basis. So we're not going to destroy, you know, all parts of the site. We're only going to deal with an area and a disturbance while we're doing that piece. So it'll be very incremental and very low impact. Public utilities, of course, all our new septic systems will be IA nitrogen reducing septic systems and to replace all our conventional septic. It should be pointed out, and you may know this, that the season, so to speak, for the program and the littles, as they call but they're not so little, some of them are. You know, it's a short season. It basically goes from, you know, June through middle to maybe third week in August. So our tapping of the water, the well water, is actually fairly light compared with another facility that would be operating year round. So the seasonal demand is very low. I know public address or sound systems, people are worried about, we're not gonna have either. The concerts that are performed with just natural acoustics. And there's no public address system on the property at all. ADA compliance, this will be an absolute stellar example of everything that can be done to make every building, every part of the site accessible. Whether it's ramps, the quality of the ground cover so that it's permeable, but it's not sinkable. We're very sensitive to that, and the bigger buildings will have elevators in them. Energy conservation, we're gonna have new energy saving heat pump, AC, heat pump, AC heating systems throughout the campus. We're actually planning to install solar collectors on the roofs of the big buildings. The dining hall and the storm. And of course, we're replacing all the windows with thermopane. We're beefing up the insulation everywhere. The walls, roofs, and foundations will all be insulated. Many of them are not at all now, but even those that are will be upgraded to present environmental standards. And then I just want to reiterate that we don't have the ambition, energy, or money to do all this at once. So we're going to be doing it incrementally, and whereas that will probably cost us a little more in the end, it does mean that the disturbance on the site at any given time will be fairly minimal because we're not ripping up the whole site at once. I talked about the native vegetation. The other thing is that because of the nature of the program, which must go on every summer, we're going to be doing construction in the off-season. So just in terms of neighbors and disruption to, a time like this, we won't be doing construction during the summer season because the program needs to go on no matter what. So that's our informal response to all of these things. They'll be bolstered by reports and submissions as required to verify and confirm these things, which I'm saying, but we just wanted to give you kind of a sense of where we're coming from. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
I was just going to say, if you have any questions of any of us, and then the public as well, we are having all these other parts of the town government who are going to be reviewing the technical side of the application. If there are any questions you have about that, we're here to actually go into that depth if you'd like. We're just giving you like a broad stroke here, but if you really want us to delve into something, you may have a specific question or general questions about the whole plan, we're prepared, if you'd like, to go into much more detail here during the public hearing or the adjournment.
We have several of our consultants online if you have detailed questions about the
We have them
subject.
all available for any questions you might have.
If I could just interject real quick. So just for the record and for the public's edification, we have our town engineer engaged, we have the building inspector engaged, we have the CAC engaged, we have the planning board engaged, we have our secret consultant engaged. So all these entities are going to be reviewing the site plan and getting back to us with the report, or getting back to the town board with a report, so they can review it. So it's my recommendation at this point that you don't get into too much detail without having those reports and being able to review them. So you can ask better questions based upon that review.
I can ask a question, if I may. It sounds like a wonderful project. It looks like a wonderful project. So the program now operates from June through August, per se? And what, in the off-season, how is it utilized?
I can answer. So we do have weekend concerts, occasionally maybe 6 of those in the off season. And we run very small programs for like 10 to 16 alumni. One is a biennial program and one is annual, for just 4 days or so, where they come back here, they work on their own project, they present a concert, usually free of charge. And that happens in our Clark Art Center, so in an indoor hall that we have that seats about 120.
Okay, so the buildings are occupied throughout the year,
No,
utilized to a degree, some of them?
I would say in the off season, it totals to about 20 days maybe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I just wondered, because now you're gonna have this beautiful facility, really. Is there any plan to use it more in the off-season?
Shelter Island is a pretty seasonal place, and we're a seasonal program in that our students they go to school, they have their year-round commitments, so we reserve the right to add, a week-long program here and there, but it would never be a full-time facility.
Okay, thank you.
Also, Albert, just to point out some of the generosity that this community has received from the Pullman program.
Gosh.
Is when I was running Sylvester Manor, we needed a place to go in the winter when the house was not a good place for the administrative function of the manor to be. And Pullman always offered us a place to hide out in the winter.
And because all the buildings will be up to modern standards for heating and cooling, it can be used comfortably any time of year.
So right now, we ran a program in April. We were supposed to go to Israel for a residency, and we couldn't because of security considerations, and we ran the program here in Shelter Island. We had to rely on the generosity of our donors to house faculty members because we just don't have enough winterized spaces. So the program was very small, 24 kids, and we housed many people off campus, and we would love to be able to do that on site going forward.
I have one question. You mentioned you're upgrading to heat pumps and you're going to add solar. Will you be using sort of a net meter system for the solar? Will you be storing energy and power walls for backup generation?
Yeah, we're working with our mechanical engineers and electrical engineers on that, whether we feed the power back into the grid or whether we store it. I think we're not looking to become a solar farm, so I doubt that we're gonna have big storage batteries or anything like that.
I'd like to just speak. I'm James Cummings. I'm the facilities manager. And this camp and program developed with the typical Shelter Island. We got an old building. Come November, we got to turn the water off because we can't heat the place. So as the facilities manager, my primary responsibility is drain all the pipes. All these things have to be drained every year, on and off and on and off. Puts a lot of wear and tear on things. We can't run it in the off season. We got to start it up, we got to turn it off. Building new buildings, because of the nature of the code, we now have to build a building that can be utilized all year round. We can't build a building that's only a summer building and house students. So that nature of what can be is going to be part of the new thing. But as you heard it today, the children will only be here in the summer. Alumni may come in the winter. Those alumni are not the same numbers. And the numbers, as Ms. Brohm said, remain small. And that's our mission. So I just wanted to say the character of turning the water off, it will still be there. It just will be new buildings, So hopefully we just shut the electric off and not off, but turn it down.
Turned down.
Thank you.
Does anybody from the public have a comment on this application? Anyone in the room?
Excuse me. I'm Michael Coles, and I've lived in Shelter Island for about 6
Sir, can you just go,
Sorry.
it's for the camera, sir.
I've lived in Shelter Island for about 60 years and have been extremely happy here. And I love it. One of the reasons I love it so much is Perlman. And I just want to say a moment, the music that Perlman plays is the classiest music you can find anywhere. I mean, and when I say classy, I don't mean snobbish. It's a very special kind of music. And when I heard they'd been tossed out of the South Fork because they were going to be noisy, chamber music. Chamber music is designed to be in a small room with 2 violins, a cello, and something. I forget what it is. It's small stuff. And people here, we have Perlman in Shelter Island, and they're absolutely jaw-struck because it's so incredible. I just wanted to say, I think we as an island benefit enormously from people realizing we have chamber music here, we have Perlman here, and we sure as hell ought to help them stay. Thank you.
Excuse me.
Anyone else from the audience?
Yeah, okay.
Anyone else in the room want to speak on the application? Anyone on Zoom? Rob Coburn, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Meg. I was the project manager for the project next door at Pridwin, but I'm not here on behalf of Cape Resorts. I just wanted to say that, over the last 5 years, mostly for good reasons, I've gotten to know a lot about Shelter Island. I live in Southampton, but I feel like Shelter Island is a second home. And, I think there's probably a couple dozen communities on Long Island that would love to play host to the Perlman Music Program. And there's probably a couple hundred in the Northeast US that would love to have what you guys have in the partnership and the lovely presence of Perlman. I think the idea that they want to upgrade, not expand their use or the nature of the use or the intensity of the use and stay there and invest and make the property more stable and more resilient and to lead them in the future is great for them. It's great for the island. So I just wanted to give sort of full support on a personal basis, not on behalf of Cape Resorts. Perlman's been a great neighbor for Pridwin in my experience, and I think it's worth remembering that this neighborhood was really a camp and hospitality and cultural center, which inexplicably in 1957 was zoned residential. But this is the nature of what's been there in different ways since before there was a zoning code, and I think it's remarkable that the Perlman program has invested the way they have. So I'm just speaking up to voice personal strong support for this and appreciation for their willingness to continue to invest in their presence and their partnership with Shelter Island.
Thank you. Do you have anyone else who'd like to speak on the application?
I'll say a few words.
Please come up to the podium.
As a fan, should I go previous?
Yes, please.
Yes, please, and just
Okay.
state your name for the record.
Yes. I love coming to the Shelter Island programs that the Perlmans run. And it has made my life here. And I just marvel at so much of what they do. They have the family weekend where young kids come. They go into the schools. They have concerts. I remember once Friends of Music, they had I guess one of their players got COVID. Who comes to the rescue with the Perlman Music Program? So I too am a great fan, and I have many friends around here who are also great fans. We just love to come to these concerts. And I think Michael Cole said it just right on, that it is, I live in New York City sometimes, and it is, I'm not losing anything with the arts when I come here and I go to a Perlman Music Program concert. It's just wonderful. So thank you.
You just state your name.
Thank you.
Please state your name for the record.
Barbara Barnes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Can I just add that another element of our plan is to really serve the public better, because right now, we don't even have public facilities for concert goers. We have portable bathrooms that we bring onto the site for the summer. And one element of the plan is to have accessible public restrooms for the audience. So we're really here to serve our kids, our faculty, our community, which includes, you know, everyone here and everyone in South. Thank you.
All right. I don't see any more hands up, so I'll make a motion to adjourn this hearing to the 26th. Can you get a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Hey Meg, this is Caitlin Kine from Peter Grosser Consulting.
Oh, hi,
I
Caitlin.
couldn't make it tonight. How are you?
Good.
I just wanted to let you guys know that we have the coordinator review package ready
Okay.
to undertake coordinator review on behalf of the town board. And we can send that out tomorrow. We just wanted to get the board's approval to proceed with that.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, please.
Okay, we will send it out tomorrow. Yes.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. All right, we have one more hearing. Thank you. We'll give everybody a second to clear out. I didn't notice she was on.
Okay.
Wait.
So the PW aggressive. So. Secret.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because a lot of stuff is
No, they've been working on management. We've been doing it for a decision. Yeah, no, they've been working on the secret. And so we'll, yes. Okay. So the last hearing we have is on a local law to extend the moratorium on the processing and approval of dock permits by the town board. So that is essentially.
That's the public.
Sorry, Amber, I did your job. So this is to once again extend the moratorium just so we can finish our code review.
Yes, and on July 10th, 2024, I appeared in front of the Suffolk County Planning Commission to present our case to extend it for another 3-month period. And it was unanimously approved by the Suffolk County Planning Commission with a caveat that, you know, we report back in October of 2024, which I assume if everything goes right, we're going to be adopting this, the new code revision by October 28th.
Okay. Does anyone have any comments regarding this? I see no hands. I make a motion that we close the hearing.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. All right, so we're going to close this portion and move back into the work session, and we have one resolution. Afraid to do something? We're going back to the, whereas the public hearing was duly held on Monday, August 5th, 2024 at 6:08 PM prevailing time to hear any and all persons either for or against local law entitled local law to extend the moratorium on the processing and approval of block permits by the town board. Now therefore be it resolved, the town board does hereby adopt local law number 12-2024, which provides as following. So the legislative intent here is to rewrite the dot code. So it's extending the already extended moratorium for 3 more months in order to finish that review and adopt.
So close.
So I make a motion, we accept.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Make a motion to close the hearing,
So moved.
close the meeting.
Close the meeting.
Both.
Meeting.
Yes, so
We're closing the meeting.
yeah, we adopted that local law.
Resolution. Now I would like to close the meeting.
Motion.
Motion to close the hearing.
So
Close the
moved.
meeting.
Second.